Hey there, everybody. This is Linda Bennett, your spiritual counselor and psychic host for Metaphysically Speaking. Today we are going to be talking about prayer. What is it? Is it 3 Our Fathers and 3 Hail Marys and a good act of contrition? Is it reading the Bible? Is it sitting out in the woods and listening to the birds? Is it sitting quietly at home? Is it running? Is it sleeping? Which is what happens to many of you when you think you're meditating and praying and you're laying down. You doze off. What is the concept of prayer? What is the appropriate type of prayer? What type of prayer were you taught? Now I lay me down to sleep? That's a really sad prayer, because if I die before I wake, how many kids want to fall asleep? How many kids have developed insomnia? If I die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. That's a cheery thing to think about before you go to sleep. So if you've got any ideas on this, I'd love you to type it in on your internet, or what do you, we're tweeting, but on the internet web, Metaspeak.com, and give us your ideas and your thoughts. Also, I'd like any general feedback on any of the programs we have done. The last one we did was on relationships. I'd be interested in your comments and your feedback and your questions, and your definition of prayer. The standard yogi, Hindu, kahuna, which is the Hawaiian or Polynesian spirituality. A kahuna would be like a priest or a priestess. Prayer is when you talk to God. You tell God your problems. You discuss the solutions you'd like to have, better events in your life, the job you want, the relationship you think you want, whatever it is. Meditation is when you sit quietly. No radios, no TVs, no screaming kids, no barking dogs. Quietly. And you listen to God talk to you. Now, many people think, well, it's not about, meditation isn't talked about in the Bible. Well, first of all, we don't know what's in the Bible. We don't know what was in the Bible. We have no idea who wrote the Bible. And frankly, I don't live my life based upon concepts of old men thousands of years ago who had an agenda. Think about it. They were all Jewish priests and leaders who wanted things to go their tribal way. There are some lovely things in the Bible. There are some pretty god-awful things in the Bible. And all these Western religious texts, they're talking about bashing heads. They're talking about offering, like Lot offering his daughters to sleep with strangers because you're supposed to accommodate strangers. Take a look at that Old Testament, people. It ain't real happy. It is not real loving. And God is not an angry, vengeful being. If you say, I want to pray to God, don't be afraid. Because the essence of you is the essence of God. The thing that manifested you, manifested trees, pussycats, birds, plants, flowers, oceans, planets, galaxies, solar systems, universes, is what the God force is. Not an old guy in a robe. Not someone who tells you to cut your kid in half. Not someone who tells you to walk into fire. That's tribal junk to get you to be fearful. That is mostly what the Old Testament is about. Just read Deuteronomy. That'll really perk you up. Read Leviticus. That's another one that'll perk you up. Sensibly, there are a few things in there, like don't eat things that crawl in the sea, on the seabed. Now, why was that? Well, it has nothing to do with God. It has everything to do with the last catechism. Catechism is prayers and rules and regulations for the Catholic Church. Cataclysm is when the earth has amazing upheavals. The tectonic plates shift, volcanoes, earthquakes, storms, everything changes. The last one was when the last part of Atlantis went down, and everybody's pretty well figured that out by now. They don't know what it caused it. I'll tell you what caused it. The Earth shifted on its axis. It's been shifting on its axis the last several years, and the earthquake in Japan shifted it even more. Every time there's a big volcano or a big earthquake, the Earth shifts slightly. The Earth is a living thing. It's not a solid rock floating around in the galaxies. It's a living, breathing thing. And it goes through changes. You go through changes, the planet goes through changes. So if you want to say, well, I'm going to live my life based upon what these old guys who had certain tribal regulations to keep everybody in line from their perspective want me to do, you're crazy, but that's your free will. Don't try to impose it on others. The way a lot of politicians do. The way a lot of ministers and priests and rabbis and imams try to do. You want to live your life with dignity and graciousness. Graciousness, if you're a regular listener, you know that is my favorite word. You will never be wrong. You will never go wrong. Even if you're at dinner and you pick up the wrong fork. If you laugh about it and say, excuse me, which fork is it now? Okay, pick that one up. Gracious is an elegance of thought and behavior and a giving of yourself and a receiving the very best way you can from others, their best, and a patience about how others respond to you, trying to do their best. And a tolerance for people who are trying to really irritate you and be annoying. Realizing that maybe they're not trying to be annoying to you as much as they're trying to be annoying to themselves. It's a gentleness and a tolerance and a kindness and a well-beingness. How could you possibly go wrong with those types of thoughts and behaviors? You can't. I've taught many classes, including to martial arts people, and of course they're trained to kill. I even worked with a guy who was in the Black SEALs in the first war in Iraq. And the Black SEALs are like not supposed to exist, but everybody knows now with the capture of Osama bin Laden, thanks to our President Barack Obama, who is not a Muslim, he is a Christian. People, get it through your heads. I don't care what your minister is telling you, you're being lied to. Hawaii was a state and a territory before the state. He's an American. But through his leadership, and in fact just recently, the commander in charge of the operation commended him on his intensity and brilliance and courage. How many commanders do you hear